Welcome everyone to our live Terrazzo Knitalong. This is going to be amazing, and I'm so excited that you are here. If you don't know me, my name is Ellen Lewis with Crazy for You, a yarn store in Leonardtown, Maryland, and we are going to spend 4 sessions. It's 5 weeks, and we are going to knit the Terrazzo sweater by Petiteknit. A super cute little turtleneck sweater that is worked using 2 of my favorite yarns, Noro and Rowan Kid Silk Hay. So Noro is the Silk Garden Sock Solo that's used, and it's carried with a strand of very fine kid mohair silk yarn that's lightly brushed. And my favorite of that is Kid Silk Hay's. So very fun. And I would love to hear in the chat what colors you are using. So tell me in the chat what you're using. So let's say hey to everybody. Hey Liz, hey Meredith. Oh my goodness, yay. Everybody, we were chatting like I said earlier, and it looks like everybody's yarn arrived on time, and so I'm very happy about that. But if you didn't see last week's promo that Whitney and I did, it's kind of fun because we talked about all of the different color combinations that were available for this project, which is striking how many, you know. Let's see. Moonstone. Okay, yes, Julie got the moonstone. Hi, Rita. Nice to see you. Okay, so I'm a little scattered. Anyway, I wanted to share with you because last time, Whitney and I were looking at all of the different Silk Garden socks and all of the different combinations that there were out there. So it's not just that there's a matter of, you know, a lot of different colors of the Noro Silk Garden and a lot of different colors of the Kid Silk Haze. It's that you can use them in so many different combinations. And I was talking with the gals in Club Crazy for You on, I guess it was yesterday night, and I was sharing with them that what I did is I took this Silk Garden Sock Solo that I was using, and I swatched it with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different colors of Kid Silk Haze that I just sort of had lying around. And I wanted to share that with you real quick so that you can just see what impact and what a difference the different colors of the Kid Silk Haze make. So let me go ahead and show you. In stock. The reason is because then you have that center section, and it's super easy for you to gauge. Right. It looks like I am problems with my audio again. Hang on. Whoops, now you can hear me. Okay, so I'll be honest, I had to turn my microphone off while I hollered at my IT department to see if he could fix the sound thing, and then I just sort of did my own mess of a sound thing. Okay, so what I was saying was about gauge, all right? Everybody you want to make sure, did you hear me talk about the gauge before? About, you know, what the gauge is? Yes. Okay. So the gauge is 17 stitches over 4 inches. And some people are going to need an 8. I needed an 8 to get that gauge. Some people are going to need a 9. And if you're a looser knitter, you might need a 7. But I like to cast on 34 stitches in stockinette with a little bit of garter on either side and make a nice big swatch so that you can really see what your fabric is going to look like. Does that make sense? So that's the way I do it. And And I'm assuming everybody got gauge on there and everybody's had a chance to swatch, right? Yes. Okay. Good. So I had a question last night from Liz about the importance of washing or blocking your swatch. I am of the opinion, and there are a lot of people out there who have a lot of opinions about a lot of things, but I tend to, if I am like on the edge with a gauge, I tend to opt down. Like if I had knit my swatch on my 8s and it had come out to 18 stitches over 4 inches, rather than going up a needle, I would probably ease it out a little bit, because I feel like knit fabric always stretches a little bit, and it's okay if you ease it out a little bit. Whereas if it's too loose and too floppy, then there's really nothing that you can do about that going forward. So that is the way I approach it. You would have to do with your gauge what you feel comfortable doing, okay? So let's see. Meredith says, my gauge is slightly off, but I'm good with it. I like those measurements better. Okay, so if does anybody have any questions about gauge that they want to talk about or want to ask? Happy to hear what you have to say. I just ate a piece of carrot cake and it was very yummy. Let's see, let me make sure. Okay, the next thing I want to talk about is choosing a size. All right. So where are you with choosing sizes on this? The pattern calls for you to have about 5 inches of positive ease. And positive ease means that the garment is larger than your body measurements. So if your body measurement across the bust is 35, then you would want to knit the garment that was 40 inches, right? That's typically how you make those kinds of decisions. And I agree with that generally, unless you are very, very busty, in which case you don't necessarily need a solid 5 inches of ease over your bust line, okay? If you are very, very busty, I believe you should measure above your bust, measure your upper bust measurement up here, and then give yourself 5 inches of positive ease from that measurement, okay? Because this measurement up here, I say this all the time. I say it in, YouTube videos, on Instagram, wherever I'm talking about sweaters and sweater fit, because I am all about sweater fit. And the last thing that you want if you're busty is for the sweater to come out too big for you. And if you make your decisions about sizing based on your full bust and you're a busty girl, the sweater might give you the required amount of ease over the bust line, but it's going to be too big every place else. So by taking this upper bust measurement and using that for an oversized sweater, using that measurement to determine what size to knit, I think is going to give you a much better result, because we don't want to be swimming in this. Yes, we want it to be comfortable, and yes, we want it to be relaxed, but we don't need to be swimming in it. If you are a, A, B, C cup, don't worry about it. If you are a D or larger, then you want to look at that upper bust, okay? Let me know in the chat if that makes sense or if you have any questions about that, right? Okay, so are we ready to get started? Has everybody decided on their size? They know what size they're making and their gauge is correct, right? So, and you've all purchased your pattern either from me at Crazy for You or from Petiteknit on her website or through Ravelry, right? I think it's a good idea to go ahead and print out the pattern. And at the end of the video, I am going to give you a link to download a shaping tracker that I put together specifically for this project. And that will help you Go through row by row, entering the increases and where you're going to make them, and that will help keep you on track. So I will post that at the end of this, and then you can go and get that. Let's see. The smallest size in the pattern is 38 and a half. I should be 37 with 3 inches of ease. Should I go down a needle size to compensate for the difference or leave it? Gosh, I would probably leave it, Sandy. I know you're tiny, but it's only about an inch or so, and I think it's probably going to be okay. And chances are, as we knit in the round, sometimes we tend to tighten up anyway. Not everybody, but a lot of people tend to tighten up when they're knitting in the round. So I really wouldn't worry about it. I think it's probably good, and it's just better not to. If you're on gauge, I would go with that. Yay, I'm glad you like that. So this knit along, we have this week and next week, and then we're skipping a week because at that point we will be just working the body down to where we will begin the ribbing. So you have plenty of time, and this is going to be recorded. It's always, it's on YouTube, so it's always going to be there, and it's ready for you whenever you are ready. So don't worry about that. One more thing I wanted to mention when we're talking about swatching and we're talking about knitting in the round or flat or whatever. This sweater starts knit flat, but after you separate for the sleeves, obviously it is worked in the round. And you want to be aware if you have a tendency to what's called row out, which means that your purl stitches tend to be a little bit looser than your knit stitches, you might want to just be really mindful of what your gauge looks like once you get in the round. So after you've been in the round for a little bit and you've been working, got something in my eye here, you're going to want to check your gauge and make sure that it hasn't gotten too tight. So if it looks like your gauge is changing as you get in the round, go ahead and change your needle. One thing to look for, and I did a whole video on this, and I'll go back and I will link it in the description here, about whether or not you need to swatch in the round. If you look at your stockinette fabric that you do flat, and you can see lines across the back of it, very visible horizontal lines across the back of your fabric on the purl side, that means that you probably purl more loosely than you knit. In which case, you will want to swatch in the round to make sure that you're using the right needle for this project so that you get the gauge you need while you're working in the round. Because the portion that you're doing flat is very small, but the whole body of it is worked in the round, and it's really important that your in the round gauge be correct so that the garment fits you the way you expect it to. Okay? Does anybody have a problem with rowing out, or you know that already? I'd be interested. I know that a number of people have that. So it's just a function of the way you knit. So I'm not right or wrong. It just is. So you swatch. Oh, you did swatch in the round. Good job, Sandy. Boy, she is so organized. That Sandy. I'll tell you what. Okay, so I thought it would be fun just to sort of walk through some of the pattern, and if you had questions, go ahead and let me know. You're going to start with, obviously with casting on, and you're casting on the back neck up here. And then she has you purl the first row, and then the next row she tells you to place the markers. You're going to be much happier if you place the markers on that first purl row. So go ahead and cast on. You can cast on any cast on you like except for the E-wrap cast on. I'm a fan of the long tail cast on for this. You could also use the cable cast on if you want, or the German twisted cast on, or whatever you like. Just remember that you don't want your cast on to be overly cumbersome. So nothing that's going to give you too much volume there. So that's why I like the long tail cast on for this. It's very easy to pick up against, which is what we're going to be doing when we are picking up our stitches for the neck. So I like the long tail cast on. If you hate the long tail cast on and you want to do the cable cast on, that will absolutely work as well. Let's see. Good, Meredith. That's great. Yay. Okay, good. So it doesn't sound like people are rowing out. And I'm glad that you know what I'm talking about. So you're going to go ahead and you're going to cast on and you're going to put your markers in there as she directs, right? Super easy. And then you get to start the increases. So that first row where you're working along and you're starting your increases, those are going to be so fiddly. I will tell you that the make one right and the make one left on the knit side are challenging enough at the beginning, but then make one purl on the the right and left is even more challenging. So I've done a video because I know that sometimes my camera here can be a little jumpy. And so what I did is I went ahead and I videotaped it so that I could get really, really close up and show you what we are doing. So are you ready to, who's working like right along with me? Tell me in the chat if you're working right along and doing this kind of as we go, because I would love to hear that. That would be so much fun to know. Maybe I could bring you up on stage and, you could be on the stream and we could see your work. That would be fun. Let's see. Okay, I want to make sure that I got answers to everybody's questions. Are we good? Okay, good. Yay. All right, everybody's working along with me. Liz and Sandy and Eveline. Excellent, excellent, excellent. So super fun. Okay. So what I want to show you is the make one right and the make one left. So let's talk about those increases before I kind of demonstrate it. There's a couple of things that it's helpful to sort of understand in the broad scheme of things, what we're doing and why. So when you are working this pattern, you've got this back neck and you are building the front and you're building the back and you're keeping these stitches at the top of the shoulder consistent. So there aren't any increases right here. You'll see that you have those same number of stitches that run down here as you work, but you are building fabric here and on the back. So, and they're done with make ones. And there's a lot of confusion about make one right, make one left, and getting very tangled up into which one you should do where. So I like to think of it in terms of you're making the stitch to lean in the direction that the fabric is growing. Okay, so if we're here and we want I'm going to turn it around. So if we're here and our fabric is growing this way, it's growing to the right. So here we're going to put a make one right. If we're over here and our fabric is growing this way, then that's going to be a make one left. Okay, so you want the make one to lean in the direction of the growth of the fabric. And that just sort of help you understand which one to do where, so you can sort of internalize that and not have to be a slave to the pattern and, oh, which one am I doing? It's easier if you can sort of internalize that. So there's that. And then the other thing is handy, a handy way to remember things, and Susie mentioned this on Sunday, and Ellen Orr as well at the magic table. She said, right rear. Okay. So when you're making a make one, it's always a matter of putting your left needle underneath that running strand that links the two stitches between which you're making that increase. So if you're doing a make one right, you are inserting your left needle from the rear. So right rear. Okay, so that's a helpful thing. And then also remember that whichever way you're inserting your needle, your left needle, you're working into the opposite. So if you are inserting your needle from back to front, you are working into the front. If you insert your needle from front to back, you are working in the back. So those are just some things that I have found to be really, really helpful for me as I go through and sort of am dealing with all of the increases as we go. So Meredith says, on the knit side, I learned make one right, be right back, back to front, and make one left, left through front door, front to back. You know, whatever little mnemonic works for you, but make one right is when you put your needle in through the back. Yep. Hi, Linda. Good. I'm glad that you like that. So, yeah, so we do want to kind of try to internalize that. Otherwise, you're going to be, you know, constantly looking back at your patterns. You're going to be frustrated. And I'll tell you another little secret. If you mess up and you do the increase in the wrong direction, it's really not going to matter that much. Okay. It's just not a crisis. It's not worth ripping it out. If you make a mistake and you do it in the wrong direction, I would not encourage you to go back and fix it, because ripping out mohair is no fun anyway, and it's just not that big a deal. Okay, so be kind with yourself, give yourself some grace, and do the best that you can, right? That's all we can ever do. Okay, so I'm very, very happy about these videos that I was able to make, because they are so close. You get up close and personal with my stitches. So the first one I wanted to show you, and this is the first one that you're going to come to, is make one right. And most of you are already familiar with this. You've already done it. You've already seen it. So this will be a review. But if not, I hope you enjoy it. Let's see. Here we go. Question. We just experienced. Oh, that's no fun. Yes. No good. Okay. Can we use lifted increase instead? You know, you could. You could. It's just like with cocoa knits, you could do the lifted increase. I did the make one for this just because that's what the pattern said. It's certainly something that has been done, right? You know, in cocoa knits, you're doing the lifted increase row after row after row after row. So it's completely fine. And if you want to do that, Sandy, you absolutely can. I would look at it. I don't think it, you know, whatever makes you comfortable, whatever makes you happy. I'm going to be teaching the make one here, and that's what I'm using in my project, but I think you absolutely could do the lifted increase. Okay. Okay, so let's put this up there and we will get started with looking at make one right. In order to do a make one right, we are going to be picking up this strand that runs between the first stitch on each of our needles. So I usually use my right needle to help me lift that strand up. So for a make one right, we're going to lift that strand up and we're going to be inserting our left needle from back to front. And now we are going to work into the front of that stitch. And that is a make one right. Okay, so did everybody get that? So let's look at a make one left. To do a make one left, we are going to be using the strand that runs between those two stitches. And I use my right needle to lift that strand up so that I can see it better. And I am going to be inserting my needle from front to back for a make one left. And I'm going to insert my right needle through the back of that stitch to work it. So into the back of the stitch to knit that. Get my marker out of the way. And that is a make one left. So make one right and make one left. Most of you have done this. Okay, this is probably not new for you. What might be new is having to do it over and over again, where you are lining those make ones up so that the tension is increasing. Because when you think about a make one, you have that strand, as I said, that runs from the stitch on your left needle to the stitch on your right needle. That strand is connected to both of them. And what you're doing when you lift that up is to borrow tension from the surrounding stitches. So that area is going to be tight because you've borrowed a little bit of the yarn from each of the adjacent stitches to make the center stitch. And you do that on the knit row, and then you're going to do it again on the purl row. So that whole area is tight, and the running strand, the running thread gets, kind of small. So it is fiddly, it is tight, and it is tricky to see it. I think if you lift it up and lift it up and lift it up again, you can sort of pull that strand out so that it's easier for you to manipulate. Okay, so that you can get up under there and actually find your way to do it. Does everybody understand what I mean by the front of the stitch and the back of the stitch? It's not actually a stitch, it's just a strand lying over the top of your needle, but you know what I'm saying. The leg of that strand that's over the front and the leg that's over the back, knitting into the front of that and knitting into the back of that. Okay. Part of the reason that people struggle with this is that knit one, the make one right is pretty straightforward because we're accustomed to knitting into the front of that stitch, right? We're accustomed to putting our needle there. When you insert your needle from front to back, if you knit into the back of the stitch there, you're basically creating a yarn over. Basically, you are working into the strand that's been lifted up, and you're going to have a hole underneath. So if you've ever done make one rights and make one lefts on a garment, and one side looks great and the other side is all holy, it's because you haven't worked into the correct side of the stitch for the way that that strand is sitting on your needle. Okay. Remember that if it seems easy, it's not right. Because you want to knit that strand to twist it so that it closes, so that it doesn't make a hole in your fabric. Okay? All right. Good. Okay, perfect. Okay, so those are super easy, and those are things that you're familiar with. Let's look at doing it on the purl side. To do a make one right on the purl side, we are going to insert our left needle under this running strand from front to back. And we are going to purl into the back of that stitch. And that is a make one right on the purl side. Okay, so let's look at make one left on the purl side. To do a make one left on the purl side, we're going to be working under that strand. I'm going to lift it up with my right needle, and now I am going to be inserting my left needle from back to front, and I am going to be purling into the front of that stitch. And that's how you do a make one left on the purl side. Okay, so those are the hardest things that you have to do for this particular portion of the sweater. And it's really not hard. Once you get it, you can't unget it. You're really gonna get it. So you want to just sort of track and make sure that you are doing them in the right spot. You have those stitches set aside between marker 1 and marker 2 that don't change. And you have the stitches that are between marker 3 and marker 4 that don't change. All right, so you're growing the fabric between the beginning of the row and marker 1, and then you're growing the fabric that's the back of your garment, okay? But those stitches that are in between 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 are just staying the same. So what you're doing is you're building this part of your fabric, okay? And after that, then, you do that for a certain period of time, and then you're going to begin to build the neckline here. But the other things don't stop, okay? So that's why the tracking sheet is useful, and I think you will really like it. Oh, good, Morgan. I'm so glad. I know you're working that on your other garment as well, so I'm glad that that's helpful for you. And I will put those definitely in the knitting toolbox as well, so that will be handy. So, were there any questions or thoughts on this this particular portion of it? It's going to take you not very long to get through this section. What I thought we would do would be to next time we would work to where we're joining the neckline. So if you work all the way through to where it says to join in the round between now and then we'll get together next Monday and we can go through that as well. Okay, well, thank you guys so much. And were there any other questions or, oh, here we go, Zanu. Just for clarity, the body is knit first before the neck ribbing. Yes, so you're gonna work the whole body. So you're gonna be working down through kind of right here, and then you'll separate for the sleeves. And then you're gonna work the whole body all the way down. And then you've got ribbing. So we're not getting there until like the third session that we're getting together. Okay, so you don't need to worry about that. Okay, well, thank you guys so much, and happy knitting, and I will see you next time.